So I'm excited to kick off the afternoon program. Our next panel is the AI's impact on healthcare marketing. I'm Ashley Petrochenko. I head up the brand team at Cardinal, and we're going to discuss a few topics today. How do you achieve visibility in this new consumer journey, and while balancing efficiency and trust, and also how do you kind of gain team adoption and buy-in? And then lastly, we're going to kind of talk about the future of AI in healthcare and what some of our panelists see on the horizon. So without further ado, let's get started. We have an all-star lineup today. I'm going to kick it off and just kind of let you guys introduce yourselves. We have Glenn Elliott coming to us from Hackensack Meridian Health. Glenn, share a little bit about who you are, your role at Hackensack, and we'll go from there.
Great. Thank you very much. As you said, Glenn Elliott with Hackensack Meridian Health. I've been with HMH for almost 5 years now. I lead the SEO GEO team here. And prior to that, I've been in the digital space for almost 20 years.
Great. Thanks. Welcome, Glenn. Hey, we have Alan Shoebridge coming to us from Providence. Alan, share a little bit about yourself and where you're coming from.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Alan Shoebridge. I'm Associate Vice President of National Communication at Providence. Providence is a healthcare system mostly on the West Coast, 7 states. We have 51 hospitals, and I've worked there a total of about 15 years, and both in the marketing and communication fields. And today I'm leading communications, so I'll be happy to kind of provide the communications perspective on using AI.
Great. Welcome. And then lastly, we have Chris Pace joining us from SearchStax. Chris, share a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, Ashley. Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Pace. I am I'm the VP of Healthcare Industry at SearchStax. SearchStax is a solution that basically powers the search bar on your website. Been here about 4 months. Prior to that, long time at Banner Health out of Phoenix, and then Dignity Health prior to that. So I've been in a lot of y'all's shoes. Now I'm on the vendor side, but I still speak the marketer. So I'm excited for this conversation today.
Great. Welcome, guys. We have 3 great perspectives on how AI is influencing marketing now. And before we jump into that conversation, we're going to kick off a poll to kind of understand what is everyone's biggest AI-related challenge right now. So the poll is about to go live. Take a minute to just answer where is your biggest AI-related challenge. Is it integrating them into real marketing workflows, making it operational, maintaining that brand voice and quality? Or maybe it's trying to understand how AI is reshaping the search landscape, ensuring compliance. We are going to just give us a couple of minutes to let everyone kind of weigh in, and then we'll set the stage for the rest of this conversation. And it looks like, looking at the results, the patient journey and discovery is winning out. Everyone is struggling with that. How do you kind of maintain visibility? But at the same time, how do you actually integrate AI into marketing workflows seems to be another major challenge we're seeing right now. AI sounds great, but sometimes it's like, well, how do you actually just make this part of the real processes at your organization? We'll give it just another few seconds, but I think those 2 are the main challenges right now. Great. Let's just give it a second more. And then Alicia, why don't you share the results with the audience so they can kind of see where it's at right now.
That's interesting.
Cool. Yeah, I think actually making AI part of your processes is one of the biggest challenges. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and then definitely the consumer journey and how do you maintain visibility there. So great. Now we can kind of just kick off the panel discussion. And that's the very first topic we're going to kind of tackle is like, how do you maintain that visibility in the new consumer journey? And I feel like in the last year, the rate of AI summaries dominating the search, ChatGPT usage has just accelerated. And I really want to ask each of the panelists if they have, what was the most surprising shift that you've just observed in the last year? And maybe Glenn, this is something you could kick off for us.
Sure thing. Happy to do that. And thanks again for having us here for this panel. It's really exciting to be talking about this. I'm going to give you first the top level thought on that, the marketing speak, and then I'll go into what that means. So ultimately, we're shifting from optimizing for clicks to optimizing for credibility. So what does that mean? Historically, search has been, as a digital marketer, what's my rank? Where am I appearing on the search engine result page? That's been your primary concern. That's what everyone's been asking. That's what the leadership's been asking, and that's what marketers have been asking. So that's been the key. But we're transitioning now to answer first. Visibility now means being retrieved, being summarized, and most importantly, being cited in the AI results, whether it be a Google AI overview or an LLM, ChatGPT, Perplexity, whatever it may be, in those results. So zero-click and search generative experiences are now the front door for healthcare discoverability. So we've had to take the approach of restructuring the way we present our data, present our content, which is data, I suppose. It's presenting our content to consumers. And what that means is that we are looking at all our pages, and we're in the process of doing this right now across the HMH website. And we're presenting in AI-friendly formats. We're incorporating FAQs into our pages, which historically really have not. Bulleted lists and step-by-step guides when it's appropriate, videos, summaries in a clear, neutral tone. And you're going to hear this more and more from the marketers, but we're chunking our data. What you want to do is you want to get your data into bytes that are digestible by the LLMs, and that can be presented directly back to the users. You see this, and so make sure you're checking out your content on Google, just search for something and see how you appear. And if you're being cited, click through. And what I'm now finding is that, when you get cited, they're actually highlighting the data that they're citing, and it's that chunk data that they're pulling back into the LLM. So it's pretty remarkable. And if you haven't heard about schema markup yet, you're going to want to check that out as well. That's really critically important. Schema markup is essentially if our content is in a bottle, schema markup is the label on the bottle that tells the LLMs and the other models what's inside. So that's going to be critical as well for you moving forward. AI sessions are, even though still relatively small to the rest of our traffic, it's growing exponentially. We're seeing it grow 8x in 2024, 12x in 2025. But most importantly, it's representing the highest engagement rate of all our traffic sources. So we're getting like 75% engagement rate month to month. So again, we want to be not just appear at the top of search engine results, just to reiterate, but we want to be cited when people are asking about the care they should be receiving.
Yeah, definitely. And making sure that when they do see you in that citation, they're engaging, like you said, in content that's most relevant to you, your organization. Chris, is there like a new visibility or moment of influence that you're kind of watching that's been a little bit surprising in the past year of where healthcare organizations are appearing or how that is factoring into the patient journey?
Yeah, I think that the key is it's the rate of change to what Glenn described. 7% of all Google searches, wholesale, are healthcare related. 85% of healthcare shoppers go to Google first to search. 80% of the searches they're engaging with now get an AI response. And that's up from about 30, it was 30% a year ago. So that delta is what it's doing is it's creating a brand new zero-click environment. It is eroding traffic from your healthcare website, but what it is doing is it's making your traffic more qualified than it's ever been. So, and then all the while through this AI generative experience, there's hallucinations. So trust is eroding at the same time as this adoption curve is shifting. And so having that visibility of your brand voice and the tone coupled with the credibility of your organization leads to trust. And so earning back trust in this sort of shifting dynamic is really important. And, you think about, Glenn touched on this, but, through the years in SEO plays, you've been focused on the kind of the who, the what, the where, and the when. And now all of a sudden we're having to answer questions of how and why. And so reframing your content strategy, rethinking, Glenn brought it up, the schema behind the scenes is really the engine that gets that visibility and drives the credibility and trust. So, the stuff that was sexier, maybe 3 to 5 years ago is now, not even seen, but it's also earning you the positioning that you need in order to grow.
Right. And you mentioned like content strategies are evolving, and it's not only just the branded content that you may be publishing as an organization. I think a lot of this is in the reputation management sphere, PR, thought leadership. And that's something, Alan, I know you work a lot with. Can you maybe share a little bit how you're using and adapting those strategies to make sure that the right story is being told through AI summaries and the right sentiment is being shared?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, what I go back to is, telling good stories that answer questions is just key right now. Based on what Glenn and Chris were both talking about. Like, if you're helping people solve a problem, that's going to be something that AI is really leaning into right now. And I just have kind of a personal anecdote about it that I think shows, the potential here. About 4 years ago, I wrote a personal article on LinkedIn. I published on LinkedIn. I also published on my own blog. And it was about how long it takes to get comfortable in a new job. And I thought, this is a nice article. I got a good response. And a year or two went by and, I didn't hear much about it. Then about a year ago, I started getting pinged on this article every week. Someone would like it. Every comment dropped. And I'm like, what is going on here? Like, how are they finding it? Because I know it's not just getting found by, search through LinkedIn. And so I went and I Googled the topic. And my article was one of the ones that was featured in the AI response. And it's still there. And so I'm getting these pings on it. And what that kind of lesson sort of taught me is like, I was addressing a question people had. People are putting like, how long does it take? And then that credibility of, published on a credible source, addressing the key question, that has a lifespan to the content that I think we just didn't think about in the past. So being featured and thinking about, aligning your content, especially your healthcare content, like what are the questions out there people are trying to have addressed, and can you publish content that'll be a credible source that will be picked up on AI? That's a key. That's really key. And I think it widens the frame of influence that you have when you're doing that better than ever before. So I haven't even thought about this too, going back to a personal thing. When I'm writing content, I'm going to orient it more to around like what problems are people trying to solve? How would they ask these questions? And then when I'm writing the content, like how can I make sure that if it is picked up with AI, like it's going to really address that core question? So again, I think it's like we've always believed in this, telling good stories. But now more than ever, it's like answering questions, solving problems. If we can do that, I think we're really going to have our content featured a lot more and be trusted.
Yeah, I think in the past, sometimes when you go to the SERP, you type in a search query, all of the posts are exactly the same on the first page. There's not a lot of like unique voice. There's not a good story. It's just like the same message. So I think AI is actually giving people the ability to surface those articles like the one that you had, Alan, that may have been buried on a few pages in the past, but AI understands that that is a problem someone has, and it's going to find the best piece of content that answers that question. Is this something that, Glenn, you guys are going back through content, doing kind of like an audit? Because there's some articles that maybe from 5 years ago that were great, but if AI is surfacing something that's not great from 5 years ago, or the whole entire process has changed, or maybe the point of view of the organization, are you doing any kind of auditing to kind of like make sure the stories that are being surfaced are true to voice now?
Yeah, completely. That's exactly what we're undertaking. We are going through every one of our pages. We're going through every one of our Health U articles, which is essentially our blog, and making sure what's being surfaced is still relevant and citable in today's environment. But we are absolutely auditing every one of our pages.
Are you I guess this is a question for all of you. Are you working more with organizations to kind of get more of those UGC, like real reviews, real testimonials from your patients? Because it seems like those kind of real thoughts from people is being like influencing the algorithms. That's what's being surfaced through like ChatGPT and AI summaries. Is that something you're working with internal comms teams, or something that you're kind of overseeing, Alan?
I think, yes, but I feel like that's something we've always tried to do, honestly. If we can add the patient voice and credibility to it, we want to do that. And I think it, like, to your point, like now it's probably more important than ever, but that's always been something that's really up front and center. I think the hard thing, and probably a lot of people on this, listening know, it is hard to manage that because a lot of times people don't want to talk, or they don't feel comfortable, or even like their perspective could change in the future. So it's challenging. I think there's a lot of value when you can do it, and we try to do it as much as possible, but there's a challenge and there's some barriers around doing it. But I think when you can do it and make it work, it's absolutely imperative to try to do it.
Yeah, I mean, people want to hear from real people, and we touched a little bit already on the trust factor. And there's a recent, I think it was a Pew survey from 2021 to 2024, just trust in institutions across the US has been eroding. I think in the healthcare industry, it's down like 8% is the is the survey result. And so Americans are just losing trust in institutions, and AI is adding another maybe moment where the trust could be broken if we don't handle it correctly. So shifting over to how do you actually maintain that trust when you're using AI generated content? Like Glenn, maybe you could speak a little bit about the human review. How do you maintain clinical accuracy and that brand voice that's so important to like making sure trust is
It's absolutely critical. So AI can definitely make us faster. It's without a doubt. We know this, but it's going to be the governance that really keeps us trustworthy. And Chris talked a little bit about trust, and trust is critical in this new AI environment because there's so much, the technical term for it now is AI slop. There's a lot of AI slop out there and you know it. You don't have to be an AI expert to understand when you're just getting refed AI generated content that no one has even taken a moment to review or look at before they either give it to you or make it live, publish it. So for new content, we're creating new content. We make sure every AI, and we are using AI for drafts. We have a LLM model that our DTS, our IT team built. That's HIPAA compliant, so clinicians can use it as well. But for all new drafts, it's reviewed by not only our team but by clinicians and by the marketing team to make sure that we're accurate and we have the right tone. When I'm going through these audits of all the pages with my team, again, we're making sure that one of the prompts that we're using in the queries is only use information from the page, and don't because as we also all know that people who are using this daily, these models tend to hallucinate and get off track real quickly. So you've got to be very careful watching for that, and so we are monitoring that, and everything must be reviewed by human eyes before we make that live. Internally, I built what I call the ready model. We're going to make sure our content is relevant, engaging, accessible, discoverable, and then the why is challenging. I came up with your patient's next step. So that's a framework we're using when we're developing the content. And ultimately, when used properly, the AI can be a quality amplifier. Not just a shortcut. If you're using it to shortcut your work processes to, just get through things quicker, that's not good for the patients, the consumers, and it's not good for us as well.
Yeah, I think that's, Chris, something you've talked about before, how AI can actually help amplify the empathy that marketers are in tune to. Is what makes marketers great marketers. They can understand their audience. And how are you actually seeing that marketers it's amplifying that impact versus it being the AI slop, generating slop?
Yeah, so we're in this rare moment where I think AI and the capabilities can go one of two directions. One is that Terminator 2 Skynet scenario that everybody's freaked out about. It's going to take the job. It's going to take over the world. And sure, potentially it could do that. But I think where Glenn was going is really where I think the opportunity lies. And if you have high tech and high touch working together and having those guardrails, building out governance. AI is probably the first technology we've ever encountered that is a way to hyperscale empathy. And if you think about how AI works, it listens first. And what is a core value of empathetic people? They listen before they respond. And so, things like ambient listening in patient rooms really allow the doctor to have a direct connection with their patient rather than dictating notes and spending time looking at their computer. We're also able now to listen to the concerns and the questions of our end users, either through search outside of your website, search on your website, chat bots on your website, or phone calls. There's a unstructured data goldmine that sits inside of your call center data that allows you to handle service recovery faster, adapt your messaging to align with the concerns or the topics that are front and center to your patients in real time, and taking that information from a voice channel and converting it to a digital channel rapidly. So I think, again, humans have to be involved. You can't just set it and forget it and move it into another piece of shelfware. that just exists. You have to engage with it, learn from it, train it, and align it to your business strategies and outcomes so that it can provide the maximum value. And when you get all that right, I think that's where the winners and losers are going to be defined.
Yeah, I think amplifying that empathy is and letting humans do the work that they are best at is something that, burnout AI is allowing doctors to have these communications. They can focus on providing care versus taking notes. And I think in the same way, Alan, you've mentioned that AI is allowing your team of communicators to actually focus on like that human work. How is that kind of helping them do their best work and avoid burnout?
Yeah, well, I think there's different levels of value to work. I mean, let's be honest, there's things that are very rote, like every year we're going to have an update on the flu shots or whatever, and it just needs a little bit of tweaking, right? So, I mean, it's a perfect project for like AI to take existing copy and revise and update and everything like that. But, if we're rolling out a, big initiative or we're putting out a message from our chief executive or there's a high stakes kind of communication, then that's where I feel like for me personally, I like to write that thing first myself based on my, knowledge and experience and everything. But then I like to use the tools to do versioning. So, I've got a 1,000-word version that may be appropriate for one audience, but for another audience, it needs to be like 250 words or 500 words. AI can cut that down in no time. Now, again, I feel confident in what it's producing because I started the project, I started the work. And if I want to make this into a social media post, make this into talking points for leaders, like all those things that would probably take a couple of hours of work to version and get ready, like that can be done in minutes now, So again, I feel like I like to start, again, depending on the value of the work, the audience, the kind of stakes involved, again, that's the higher it is, the more like I think you need a human being starting and then using a tool to assist with, again, versioning and other things that, again, were really time consuming. But there's a lot of other projects that just, like having AI get something off the ground really helps. I was tapped to kind of work on this idea of a training video. And I was like, well, I don't want, I don't want to write this script. I wasn't really that excited about it, I'll be honest. And I had AI with the right prompts. I had it do the first draft of the script and it was pretty good. And I went in and polished it up. But again, instead of taking an hour or 2 hours to do that first draft of the script myself, I got it even with some good prompts and everything refined. It's a 5 or 10 minute thing. And then I'm doing some editing. So I feel like, when I look at kind of burnout for communicators, it's very, very high. And anything we can do to just take those projects that like we don't want to do or don't have a lot of value so we can think about strategy, we can think about refining the messages that really matter. Like I feel like that's where a lot of the potential is right here. And again, it's not necessarily like in the communication space always this revolutionary thing, but it's helping our practitioners just like we always say, in healthcare, we always said operate the top of your license, for doctors. We always say that doctors. I think we can put the same, frame of mind for communicators and marketers as well.
Yes, I think absolutely. And something I kind of use with my team is what don't you want to do? Like, what is the most annoying task that you just, like you said, you don't want it on your plate. You don't want to focus energy on it. You have way more higher value work. That's what AI is a great way to get that kind of adoption and work it into your workflows because there's the human work that's going to make the biggest, move the needle the most in your organization. I love that. But have you guys, I think on that note, found that there's any kind of resistance for AI adoption? Maybe a little bit, Glenn, that's something you could speak a little bit in your organization. Is there things that you've had to kind of like push to get that buy-in, to get people? AI is not scary. You can use it. It's not going to take your job.
Right.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Do you want me to start? Okay, I'll go real quick and then I'll turn over to Glenn. I think, on the communication side, there is resistance because as communicators, we really feel like ourselves are writing us. We identify ourselves as writers. And so much of the work that AI is helping do is writing. And so there can be some resistance there. But I think you said it well, Ashley. It's sort of like, what are the tasks within that you don't like to do? They're hard to do. Like use this tool to help you so you can concentrate on the high value work that you want to do. And I think the other thing that we did, Providence on the communication team, is just get people who are interested in the tool to kind of form a work group, find some best practices so that we can share things with people who might be a little more resistant or a little bit worried about putting it into the workflow and show them how it can work from their peers. That's been really helpful. So that's something that we're going to do even more of next year.
Great. Is that something you are kind of doing the same, Glenn, having working groups around AI adoption or new tech that you're implementing?
I mean, absolutely. So the fastest way to kill any innovation really is to make it optional, and that's a bit tongue in cheek. But the reality is, it really has to start from the top, and we do have our leadership here has been at HMH has been very focused on AI for several years now. We have a chief AI officer. We have everyone deeply invested in using it from the clinician side to the marketing side, all across the network for sure. So when you have that kind of focus on using these new tools and the emphasis, it really does become ingrained in part of the culture. Now there is always some pushback, but you reframing it as an enablement tool and helping teams understand that this is going to help them and it's not going to replace their work. AI is not going to necessarily take your job, but someone who knows how to use AI may take your job if you don't know how.
Yeah, definitely. Um, Chris, is that something that you see, like, how do you help leadership see the value in kind of AI pilots or experimentation when maybe you don't have, like Glenn says, an organization that's totally bought in? Like, how are you kind of making the case to get that buy-in when it's unclear if it's going to be successful or not?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some proven techniques that predate AI. I mean, it's adopting anything new and getting change management to happen. Because if you don't be a driving force behind change management, you're going to be the recipient of change management, and you don't want to be on that side of the coin all the time. So, I think the recommendation, I did see a question in the chat from Victor specifically, and I'm going to touch on that one about skills. But it's always smart to start small, like figure out a use case that could use another point of view or another set of tools to make it better,
Mhm.
and go into it with an expected outcome, like a hypothesis, if you will, that you are trying to solve for. So, let's say, I want to make my content more discoverable by generative engines. So, you can actually work with the generative engine to help you get to the answer that you want. But, like you have to, I think, be intentionally curious and not just rely on the first thing that it spits out. And, this is where if you're a critical thinker, AI can be like your absolute best friend because it doesn't get tired of your questions and it doesn't get tired of your back and forth. It just keeps regurgitating and reiterating and polishing and adjusting. And I think that that's really important because when you start with those sort of questions and build to a conclusion, and then you start to prove a value, then you can do something well in a small scale, then try to build it at a bigger scale and make more impact. So it's always like ideate and then iterate and then continue that endless loop over time, and you'll eventually get buy-in. But the biggest trap you can fall into is not bringing people along for the ride. So transparency, like talking about what it is you're trying to solve for, how you're doing it, why you're doing it, what you're doing. That's how you will be successful in getting some level of change adopted at any organization, regardless if it's AI or, even new paper clips. I mean, that could be a way to do it. So
Yeah, the fundamentals of change management haven't changed. It's just a new tool. But I think aligning around those shared measures of success, is there something, Glenn, that you are focused on, like with Cross Your Order? What are, like, when piloting a new AI or through your optimizations of existing content, like what is that shared measure of success that you're kind of like looking towards to help guide the team? Like, yes, this is a go, we're going to continue on.
Yeah, so this is the real challenge for us right now, Ashley, for sure. When you opened up this session with a poll, and I have my thought, and as a presenter, I'm trying to click, and we couldn't respond. Measuring the outcomes are really the biggest change because we're pretty far along on the journey for sure. I think a lot further than many health networks are. But measuring the results are the biggest challenge I'm having right now. And here's what we're doing. So we're cobbling together several different solutions to try to create a unified dashboard. I'm not quite there yet, trying to build this all through Looker Studio, and we're getting close, but we're not quite there yet. But so I'm using a tool called SEMrush. I think many marketers are familiar with that. So they've got some pretty good measuring tools, but they're not. I find them a bit lacking in that they don't always. I'm like I'm in a incognito mode and I'm checking some results, and I'm like, well, I'm seeing what I'm seeing, but you're saying I'm not shouldn't be seeing that. But using SEMrush for some AI overview, see how we're appearing. In GA4, we can see AI attributed sessions to the LLMs. And we can see a competitor share a voice in SEMrush as well. But so we're doing these things. We're seeing some solutions. We're seeing some what we think are results. But ultimately, even though traffic isn't quite the metric that it used to be, we're seeing some success there. So I'll use, we just went through and did a significant update of our a lot of areas, but I'll highlight robotic surgery. After completing, because that was one of our initial service areas that we did, we've seen a 33% increase in traffic, that's pretty unique in this world we're living in, because traffic is generally considered to be down across the board. But also we're seeing conversions. We're seeing people taking action up 600%, this quarter versus previous quarter. That's a huge jump. And that's, all else being equal, we can attribute it to our efforts here in enhancing the adapting for the LLMs and the AI overviews.
I think we've noticed that decline, like you said, in traffic across a lot of the organizations we work with. There's definitely, it is making an impact, but people are coming more informed to the organizations because they've done that legwork and that research, and they know more about the organization. So like you said, the conversions may be up, even if traffic is more qualified.
Engagement's up and conversions are up.
Okay, I think we are gonna kind of take a look ahead at the future now. Maybe it's one AI initiative or pilot that's on your roadmap for 2026. Is that something you can share, Alan? Something you're kind of focused on for next year?
Yeah, well, I think on the communication side, again, I think we'll kind of lean into what we've been doing about, establishing the best practices and getting the use cases. But as the organization as a whole, I think there are some really exciting things. And, you talked about it a little bit during the setup too, in terms of like the ambient listening AI tools. We're seeing a lot of adoption from our providers with those. And I was in my provider's office. I had my yearly checkup a couple of weeks ago, and he set his phone on the counter and he said, "Are you okay if I use AI to transcribe the notes from this meeting?" And it was great because we've been working in communications to encourage providers to do this, and seeing someone actually do it is kind of like a secret shopper that I wasn't even expecting to have happen. And I have to say, like, I got the notes after in my chart, and they were really well done. So I just think things like that I'm really excited about, the fact that AI can help with that healthcare burden. So for the provider too, and the patient experience was better. He spent so much more time looking at me one-to-one than typing on the computer. So things like that I feel like, the ROI, as we were talking about a minute ago, it's not always going to be easy to measure, but you're getting a better patient experience. You're getting a provider that's having a better time. They're not having to spend all their time after work updating notes because that tool is helping. So I feel like that's what I think most excited about, tools like that will really help just build a better patient experience. I think we've got a lot of that on our plate for the next couple of years, and I think it's really exciting.
Great. I see a ton of questions coming in. I think, Chris, if you can share maybe one pilot or something that's on the roadmap for next year, and then we'll dive into a few of those questions to wrap this up.
Larry Mead living in my head rent free right now. So agentic AI is where I was going to go.
Yeah.
Agentic AI is, claiming to be the savior that's going to reduce the pressure on call centers, be this co-pilot for care and help you navigate complex web experiences. And to a point, I agree, but I think there needs to be a strong knowledge engine underneath the hood of agentic AI in order for it to be successful. So, my company, SearchStax, we get this question all the time. Why would I invest in search? Why wouldn't I just go agentic AI? And I think it's and, not or. When people are searching your website, they are curious, maybe have some level of intent, but need to understand a little bit more. With agentic AI, you are being guided through a process based on what you know is true, or maybe you need to deepen your knowledge in order to get to the conclusion. And so what I'm thinking about right now is how can an indexed search that's properly managed and curated be the support engine for agentic AI so that it's not hallucinating, it's not sitting in its own content silo, and it's at the end of the day relieving the pressure on the call center, because every phone call is $10 to $20, and if you're fielding 100,000 calls a month based on, I can't figure out how to change my password. Yeah, you could have a chatbot answer that, but you could also have that available in your search and deflect 10% of those, and it kind of pays for the whole program. So every time you reduce phone calls for menial tasks that could be self-served, you're enabling those agents to work to their top of their license, like Alan mentioned, and serve the customer that is in the highest level of need, potentially the highest margin opportunity, because they're going to be seeking something hyper specialized, and give them the opportunity to also cross-sell services so that you could, get a lot more out of that $10 to $20 phone call than you would just on a single transaction that could be handled by a combo of self-service, self-scheduling, agentic AI, and smarter search.
Great. Thanks, Chris. I think we have about 5 minutes left. If we can maybe tackle some of the questions that are coming in. If you could refresh the deck so I can see the questions, or if you guys want to, I don't have as much visibility as you. If there's a question that you wanted to, we're going to reload our deck here. If there's something you want to tackle, I think you said someone was living in your head, Chris.
Yeah, so I took care of Larry's question, but there was another question about what can emerging marketers think about as it relates to AI. And I think that people that get far in their careers, especially marketing and communications, they ask a lot of questions, and and the reason they ask a lot of questions is because they're seeking to understand. And I think if you are a curious person that asks a lot of questions, then you will become an excellent prompter inside of a generative AI tool like ChatGPT. But also, if you're somebody that asks questions, then you'll also be thinking on behalf of the consumer or the patient as well. What types of questions will they be asking, and how would we best respond to those questions? So it's just being like constantly curious is just like, I think, hyperscale career growth. If you can figure out how to do that, or if you're already born that way, like I was, then you will have success in your future.
Right. Okay, I got some of the questions up now. And I think earlier we mentioned the skills that future healthcare marketers need to leverage AI. Is that something, Glenn, that you could speak to? The skills in your organization that you're focused on, and like you said, Chris, like the prompting, someone who's naturally curious. Is there anything else that you can do to kind of upskill your team?
Chris, I think you really hit the nail on the head. You got to be curious. You've got to know how to ask the questions, and you've got to practice asking the questions. You need to try different iterations of what you're trying to get to ultimately find the results that are best suited for your needs. I think that I saw some questions out there like, do you need to hire specifically for this? I don't think you need to, you need to be aware, you need to make good hires like you would, for any role. But I think that if someone's a strong content marketer, if someone understands the processes of traditional SEO, of traditional marketing, they certainly can learn how to do this. We put together an SEO team at HMH that didn't necessarily have a lot of background in any background in GEO, but we've been able to put together, through creating templates, creating guides, we've been able to have a lot of success in this area.
Great. And then Alan, maybe that's something you can what are you doing to kind of help upskill your team, get the buy-in? Because I know you said there was some, communicators it's their words that they value so much. So how are you kind of helping them see and upskill for the next year?
Yeah, well, I think, a lot of it becomes from just modeling behavior. So as leaders, as people who are leading teams, I think we encourage those use of the tools. We bring work groups together to get people, sharing best practices. I think that's really big, because I do feel like the sort of peer pressure to some degree, if you see people using the tool and they're getting value out of it and you're learning about it, that's really going to help, I think, and bring people along. But I do feel like, kind of what a point Chris made before, it's sort of like, it's not optional to completely resist using these tools. I think, the organization makes things available. So, at Providence, we have our own internal version of ChatGPT. We have Copilot, on our applications. And I feel like, for me, like it's not optional to completely say, I'm not going to understand how this works at all. Like you need to try it. You need to see where it works for you. And again, I feel like you'll kind of get those people who are the most engaged and wanting to figure these things out and leverage them to help bring people along who might need some skills training or, again, just to understand how these can be valuable. But I just feel like for the future, you cannot approach these as something that you can totally ignore. You can, and also once you use them, you will figure out where it assists you and where it doesn't. But if you don't do that, then you're completely ignorant of the tools. And I think that's just not a good place to be kind of for the future of your career. I think you have to know how these things work and have a case for ruling it in and ruling it out.
Great. Thanks, Alan. I think having those role models of your peers can really make a difference. People sharing the work that they're doing and having that as inspiration organization-wide can be really helpful. So
Thank you.
great. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.